Hello and welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, as always, Manny Maradiege, coming back on here live to talk to you guys about some more stories, give you guys some more discussions about the NFL and just football in general that I've seen in the news lately, in any sort of social media that's going on, and so forth. I got some more segments here for you guys today to discuss. Initially, we're going to start with the Chip Shots segment of the show. After the Chip Shots segment, or actually during the Chip Shots segment, I want to talk about a couple comments that I saw during some morning shows yesterday and into today. Some analyst, Bart Scott on ESPN, said something about Micah Parson specifically and the Cowboys, and Chris Sims from NBC, or features on NBC, is on other programs as well, made some comments on who he thinks is the most overrated quarterback or player in the NFL. So I'll get into that. I'll also be talking more about the Falcons specifically and their quarterback search after some comments that their general manager made in the news in an interview recently as well, and some scenarios that could happen if his words are to be taken seriously. Later on in the show, in the second half of the show, I will be bringing up the players that will most likely get franchise tagged in this period of the off season. Starting today all the way to March 5th is the period where teams can designate the franchise tags out to certain players, and then after that they are able to hit free agency. And lastly, another discussion I wanted to talk about, some things that I felt that each of the past teams in this past playoffs for the AFC, what those teams could specifically do to build on their good seasons, their better than average seasons this past year. What's one move they could make to kind of elevate them, to take them further, whether it be to the AFC Championship, past the first round, into the Super Bowl. What's one thing they could do to move just further along in their journey during next season. But before I get into all the topics, I want to remind you guys, as always, before I start the show, that we get a lot of comments and a lot of engagement from people during the show. So please make sure, if I'm able to see your question, to use the link down below that is running across the ticker down below me or to the left of me. The tip and donations link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, the tip and donations link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. This just makes sure I'm able to see your guys' question. It's put to the top of the list, and I am able to engage with you guys with any sort of comments, questions that you may have during the show. It's a big help, not only for this show, but for the network overall, if you guys are able to do that, and it's greatly appreciated by everyone here. So, that all being said, we can jump into the first segment, the Chip Shot segment, as usual, and some comments that were made in the media. Again, I swear this isn't a Cowboys show, but it's just that the Cowboys are always the team that's being talked about, that's just always being mentioned in the news, or they're saying stuff on their own media outlets, and it just gets put out in the news and everyone starts to talk about it. So basically, I think a few days ago, it was Micah Parsons in the news making some comments that DeMarcus Lawrence made in the week leading up to the Super Bowl. He was on First Take and said stuff like that. I will get into that more tomorrow and kind of break down those comments. But it got to the ESPN desk, the Get Up desk yesterday morning, I want to say, and Bart Scott, a former player for the Ravens, the Jets, a linebacker, other than being very animated and very passionate in what he said in his facial expressions, he said some pretty harsh words about Micah Parsons. I have the quote right here. He said, "He's the most sensitive guy that Bart's ever seen. He needs to go to leadership school and learn how to lead by example and quit talking so much and being so damn sensitive. You're a linebacker that's supposed to be a tough guy spot. That's the most sensitive guy I've ever seen. He responds to everything. Get off of social media. Quit tweeting. Quit talking about responding and go about your business. And again, those are pretty harsh words to come from Bart Scott about Micah Parsons and just the Cowboys in general. I think it kind of speaks to what they got going on there and the culture and the kind of leadership. I brought up yesterday that I thought it was a good idea that general manager, owner Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons were having good conversation about, maybe Jerry Jones getting his input on stuff that he might have some doubts over. Micah Parsons giving his intel to him, letting him know from a player's perspective, from a locker room perspective, what's going on, what are their feelings and everything like that. And I said those were good qualities to have for a leader, someone who's maturing, someone who could lead this new generation in the right direction. But then you see stuff like this. And when I saw Micah's quote about DeMarcus Lawrence and just talking about culture and stuff to that extent, I didn't think it was so bad that he said that. But it just always seems like this just boils down to, or the best decision always comes out to just keeping it between the two guys, keeping it in the locker room like everyone says, because I'm sure DeMarcus Lawrence, after thinking about it in hindsight, he probably shouldn't have said what he said on there. Again, I'll go into it more tomorrow, but he went along the lines of saying just like, basically that they weren't ready. They felt tired, and that's what kind of led to them going out, and Micah Parsons responded to that. And then, you have Bart Scott coming on ESPN and just giving a rant about some of his true feelings towards Micah Parsons and where he believes he can grow. And from that aspect, I kind of see where he's coming from. But then I got to thinking again, that's now another person, former player, talking about the Cowboys locker room, the Cowboys culture, and how it's just really missing. It's the lacking part of a championship winning team. You had Emmitt Smith saying some words as well, commenting on how he viewed the Cowboys locker room now, the Cowboys culture now. I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines around, that this Cowboys team now, everyone has their podcast, everyone's active on social media, they want to give their own opinion, but none of them have actually had any success of their own. They're just riding on the success of the past, of what his teams did in the past, and that they have to get back to winning and focusing on just playing the game. And again, you can take it however you want. It could be true in some sense that, that they have their own outlets, they give their opinions as well, but you could say that a lot about a lot of teams that or a lot of players on teams that are a lot more successful than they are. If you want to look at the Chiefs, Travis Kelce has his own podcast with his brother Jason Kelce, and they talk about stuff that he's asked about, things they want to give their 2 cents on. If they want to rant about something, they'll go on there and say it, and they don't let it distract them. They don't let anything prevent them from, keeping the main thing, playing football. That's their job. That's their profession. So I don't think it's so much that everyone wants to give their own opinion. Everyone's focused on other things other than football. I just think everyone in that locker room needs to, kind of watch what they're saying, be more media savvy, have more media literacy, I guess. I feel like I'm teaching a class or something, giving some advice on media literacy, but they kind of need something like that, because a lot of times they get these platforms and stuff like that, and they don't really think twice about how things can be interpreted, how a lot of things on the internet can be misguided. There's a lot of misinformation and stuff like that, and things get twisted. So I think a lot of that stuff was kind of lost in translation, just taking it however people wanted to take it. But on the other hand, I still think there's some truth to that this Cowboys team needs to just be more focused on some of the main things that they've been lacking, and just really try not to talk about every single thing that they're mentioned in social media. And on top of that, moving on to the next quote I saw that I thought was pretty again, pretty alarming and pretty serious. It came from Chris Sims on a recent interview as well, talking about Jalen Hurts. The quote that he said recently was, "I respect a lot about Jalen Hurts, but I think Jalen Hurts is also the most overrated player in football. That's me. I know I'm wrong. I take a lot of crap about that comment, but he plays quarterback for a team that's an all-star team. They have the best O-line in football. It's not even close. I just think if you put some other QB in there, you put Kyler Murray in there, you'd say, dang, Kyler's amazing. Is he the MVP of football?" That was his most recent quote, and I wanted to talk about that just because my opinion on it, I don't think Jalen Hurts, to say he's the most overrated player in football, I don't think that's the case, because this team, as they got better, Jalen Hurts also got better, but I think without him and his performance in the Super Bowl most recently, of a high-stakes game for the Eagles, I don't think they get even close to being in that game with the Chiefs. If it's not for a fumble that, granted, he's the one that fumbled in that Super Bowl, and then a penalty that's been talked about a lot just 2 years ago, that holding call on Juju, or on Bradbury guarding Juju, they could have easily probably won that game, or else it would have been a lot closer, 3-point game, definitely less than it was. But to say those comments, all right, I looked into it a little bit more. I said, that's just, another opinion. You can say what you want about the Eagles and their high-caliber offense, the players that they have on it. But at the same time, this year now, it's the same group of players, but they didn't play that much better. And you can put that on Jalen Hurts. You can say he finally showed what kind of player he is, the kind of level that he showed at the same time. But I don't think that a lot of players could have, one, fit into the system that they're trying to run with Jalen Hurts. I think a lot of their offense is predicated on his abilities and his ability to throw the ball, make reads, get people open, but his ability to run most of all. I don't think you can plug a lot of players in there and they will have the same success that Jalen Hurts has, because they could be pocket passers, just a lot better maneuvers of space in the pocket as well as that. So I just think Jalen Hurts, in a way, has been getting a bad rap for that, but I kind of dug a little deeper and just saw some other comments Sims made back in September of 2023, on September 27th, when the tush push was kind of gaining momentum. A lot of it was being said about it. He said back then that if he was the defensive coordinator, he'd say to his team, I'd be go headhunting on the quarterback here, go ahead, let him have it, dive over, go crazy. And then the last part, he said, try to kill the quarterback. And then right after he said, he didn't mean it like that. He took it out of context, or trying to let people not take it out of context. But, I mean, one, those comments are pretty crazy to say. And I just think once you hear the quote that he made back there in the past, you can kind of understand why he would say something like that more recently. And, that's just his opinion. And there could be some truth to that. Some fans and some analysts could think that about Jalen Hurts, but I just think he's had one good season where he was a catalyst leading the Eagles to the Super Bowl. Great performances, MVP level type of plays that he made there in that year. Now this year, rough year. Just overall, I don't think it just falls on him. The whole organization, the coaching, everything seemed to be bad and just not clicking as it is. I think this coming season will be a lot a better intel on seeing what kind of quarterback, what kind of team the Eagles really are, because now they've tasted both sides of the coin here, and it'll be a good telling sign now this year that where they are specifically Jalen Hurts, where he is in his development, if he could rebound after a tough year, be that leader that everyone sees that he is on social media with some of the quotes and things he says in press game conferences and everything. If he rebounds as the way he is, I think a lot of those critics will just quiet down, and you won't be seeing a lot of people doubt Jalen Hurts. But it all has to be proven next season, and how they come out, how they hire some coaches and really change stuff that didn't go right this past year. But that's going to be it for the Chip Shot segment. and just the first segment overall. We're going to go to a quick break, and on the other side of that break, I'm going to be bringing you guys some more quarterback talk on specifically the Falcons situation and what some of their GM's recent comments mean going forward in this offseason. So don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.